What a weekend. What a weekend. Oh my goodness. And Tammy's watching. She said to tell everybody hello. She's 2 weeks out from a total hip replacement, so they won't let her travel yet. But she's watching everybody, and what a weekend with you guys. We are obviously Gary and Tammy Newell, and we're mentored and friend, long time, Larry and Pam. And so I know Larry's loved this. Larry, you got to be proud, brother, of I am so proud of everybody that's been on this stage this weekend and what they did. They gave it all, guys, didn't they? Nobody held back. They were incredible. Emeralds, I'm proud of you guys. You guys, did they not carry? They were incredible, every one of them. I'm proud of them, and I know Larry is too. This has been incredible. It's been an incredible weekend. But I want to just wrap up with you. We're going to kind of close this down. Obviously, I'm kind of a warm-up show here for Manny, Manny and Candace. And I want to just spend a few seconds with you here, a few minutes with you, and just let's think about this coming out of here. You've had the foundation stuff, fundamentals put together, but let's just think about where we're going and what we're doing. So go back with me. The year was 1911. It's 1911. It's October 18th. Now, we're on the continent of Antarctica. You with me? It's cold. Go there with me. We're at a large inlet called the Bay of Whales. And after nearly 6 months of travel, the Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen, along with his team of 4 other men, he had 4 sleds and 52 dogs. They set out on their second attempt to be the first ever to reach the South Pole. Amundsen had abandoned his studies. He was going to be a doctor. But at 21, he said, nope, that's not for me. I want to pursue a life of polar exploration. Let's move ahead 13 days. It's November 1st. We're still on the continent of Antarctica. We're at Ross Island, where British Royal Navy officer Robert Falcon Scott, along with a team of 4 men, few Siberian Huskies, and he brought a big team of Mongolian ponies. And they set out to be the very first to ever reach the South Pole. See, Scott confessed, though, that he didn't really care about polar exploration. It wasn't his favorite thing to do. But he was seeking this to move up for an advancement, so to speak, for his family. And so here he is. Now, the expedition is going to take each team, it's going to require them to travel over 1,800 miles to the pole and back. And so what we see forming up for us is the Great Race. And the Great Race is on. It's Norway versus Great Britain. And here we go. Now it's December 14, 1911, around 3 p.m. in that afternoon. After 56 days and some 857 miles, Roald Amundsen and his team raised the flag of Norway at the South Pole. They had become the first ever to reach the pole. Amundsen left a tent there. They set up a tent, they left it there, and inside he left a letter. The letter was addressed to the King of Norway with a request for Scott to deliver it. The first smack talk, there it is. January 17, 1912, Robert F. Scott and his weary British team reached the South Pole only to find remnants that were left in a tent and a letter to him. Amundsen had beat Scott to the South Pole by 34 days. In his diary, Scott penned these words: "Great God, this is an awful place, and terrible enough for us to have labored to it without the reward of priority." He lost. Now, here's what's interesting. Both of these men are similar in age. Amundsen's 39, Scott's 43. Both of these men have similar exploration, experience. This is not their first rodeo. Both men left their base camps at roughly the same times. Both men had the same destination, the South Pole. Both men experienced the same percentage of bad weather days as they had good weather days, 56% to be exact. One man led his team to victory. The other man led his team to demise. Roald Amundsen and his team were celebrated by the world. Robert Falcon Scott and his team never made it back. They had all frozen to death by March 29. They were only 11 miles away from their depot. I want to talk about winning. I've been fortunate in my life to play on winning teams and be involved in winning at a high level. And I want you to leave here with winning, and here's why. You've got some fundamentals, as I said. You've got some foundational things, as I've said. But we've got to leave here with a mindset. And that mindset has to be a mindset of winning. Winning is what moves things. And this is a classic story. And once again, when we read this story and listen to this story and hear this story, it just confirms that history was written by winners. I love winning, guys. I love to be around winners. I love the story of champions and of winners. And I think that's why I love this arena so much, because it allowed us to win. It gave us a place that we could win. It was no longer dependent on how fast you could run or how high you could jump or how great you could act or how great you could sing or perform. We could go take some simple disciplines and win. So I want to talk about winning. And I want to share with you 3 simple lessons on winning that we can learn from Amundsen and Scott. And as always, when I share these principles apply to you in any endeavor in life. These principles aren't for your business growth exclusive. Hopefully they'll help your business, but they're for life. You guys know, a lot of you know our background, my background, and I'm speaking all over the country, all over, and I'm speaking on these type subjects all the time. And so this is just a mindset, a mentality that champions carry with them. So let's look at the lessons. There's 3 here that just jump out to me. And number 1, very simply, is preparation. Winning, preparation. Amundsen prepared for these he had these, what I would call built-in buffers, you know? And in other words, just in case some bad things happen along the way, he was prepared. He was prepared. Scott depended on his Royal Navy officer reputation. He depended on his attitude and his experience. Ego can be a funny thing, gang. A real funny thing. This time it was deadly. Amundsen packed 4 thermometers, minor detail. He said, I'm carrying 4 thermometers on this expedition. Scott packed 1, and it broke. Amundsen took 52 dogs. He took his sleds, he took skis. He knew that he could kill and eat the weakest dog along the journey. That was part of it. 11 dogs made it back to Norway. Scott took just a few dogs to help lay their depots along the way. Instead, he used the first, it was a mechanical type ice sled is what it was called. It was the first one, but it had never been tested in cold weather. And instead of the dogs, he decided that what he would do was carry these Mongolian ponies. Well, the sled broke. All the sleds broke. The ponies, their coats became soaked with perspiration, and that required them now to give them constant attention with blankets to avoid hypothermia. Their hooves were large and they were heavy, and so they sank into the snow and they would sink through the thin ice. Scott began to kill the ponies early for food, earlier than he had ever planned because of what was going on, and it reduced his team to man-hauling. Man-hauling simply means this: the men were harnessed to the sledges and pulling like the ponies now. Amundsen recruited a team of highly experienced skiers that had skied since early childhood. Scott didn't require his team to train for skiing at all, which meant that they were now reduced to walking through the snow. Amundsen studied the Alaskan Eskimos who had lived in the icy cold weather for centuries. And he learned something from them. They wore fur to survive. Simple. His team wore fur. Scott wore woolen underwear and the latest rubber British military coats designed for cold weather. Well, their sweat froze in the clothes and it made them hard and stiff to even move. Amundsen ate raw penguin and seal meat. He had learned on an expedition to the North Pole that he had taken 13 years earlier that raw meat would give his men and his dogs the vitamin C that the body needed or requires really to avoid scurvy. In fact, in one of his diaries, he calls the penguin meat, quote unquote, the most delicious steak you could wish for. I don't know about that one. Scott's team, though, had insufficient food for their needs. They also underestimated how much food would be needed. So here's what goes on. The requirement of man hauling, now having to pull the sleds, created a greater need for food. So they experienced dehydration and were most certainly suffering from scurvy when their bodies were found. You know, it was Benjamin Franklin that said the famous quote, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail, or failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail, and all of you know it, you just don't know that Mr. Franklin said it first, but at any rate, this is a classic example. Classic example. You see, Amundsen won the race and he became champion to his country and was celebrated by the world. He accomplished what no man had ever accomplished, the first one to do it. But Amundsen didn't become a champion when he planted the flag at the South Pole. Amundsen became a champion in the hours, the weeks, the months, and the years he spent preparing for the expedition. Preparation, gang. Champions are forged in those times when no one's watching. No one sees what you're doing. Confucius said, and I quote, "Success depends on previous preparation, and without such preparation, there's sure to be failure." Well, Amundsen and Scott are a picture of this truth, that's for sure. And it's this simple. Winning begins with preparation. You're leaving here. You can't look at the expeditions you've taken before. Winning begins leaving here with what? Preparation. The winner is the master of preparation. You know, when Tammy and I look at any level of success that we've ever had in this business, we will be the first to tell you that we are average, basically below average in skill sets and knowledge and any talent that it would take to build business or success in any endeavor in that. But what we do possess is very, very simple. We're obsessed with practice and preparation. Countless hours when no one saw what was going on. Countless hours. Yes, preparation wins. Number two, plan. Plan. Amundsen's team marched 20 miles every day, no matter what the conditions were. That was the plan. We're gonna get up and we're gonna go 20 miles. I don't care if it's 80 below, 40-mile-an-hour winds in our face. We are walking 20 miles every day. Scott team said, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna walk 40 to 60 miles every day when the weather is good. When the weather is bad, then what we'll do is we'll take advantage of it and rest in the warmth of our tents. What a powerful lesson on winning. See, I can see Amundsen. He understood, guys, hey, we're not obligated to win. We're obligated to stay consistent. Consistent. Winning is developed through patient consistency. It's built on perpetual pursuit. Consistency was Amundsen's most important ingredient. See, winning is never conditional on how you feel. Can you imagine how they felt some of those mornings? You win when the conditions are not great. It's determined by who can stay consistent for the longest period of time. And he did it every day, every day. When conditions were seemingly unbearable, Scott and his team just embraced the comfort of the warmth protection inside his tents, the comfort zone. Scott's biggest disqualifier was the comfort zone. Winning begins at the end of your comfort zone, and Amundsen and his team chased the pain. They embraced the unbearable, and they played scared. For Tammy and I, our personal experience has been this. When we look back at the biggest successes we've had, and I don't care whether it's business successes or athletic successes or any of those type things, winning, we were always almost the most uncomfortable times. We were always operating in discomfort because winning is never comfortable. Winning never comes from comfort zones. Amundsen and his men embraced what Scott's team ran from. Tammy and I chose to embrace what the masses we watched ran from. Amundsen and his team had a disciplined plan of action, gang, but it wouldn't entertain compromise. No matter what the cost, action breeds courage and confidence. And so it was 20 miles every day, every day. And one of the greatest secrets to winning is found in your daily habits, and that was Amundsen's principle. Comfort is a trap. And for Scott's team, the trap of choosing comfort proved deadly. You see, comfort zones are the enemy of winning. They're the enemy of winning. It's not what you go through in this process that you're going through, in any endeavor. It's not what you go through. It's how you view what you go through that will make that difference. And that's a foundational perspective for winning in any endeavor. So chase the uncomfortable as you leave here. And remember, great victories are never found, or they never come from comfort zones. And then number 3, purpose. It's preparation, a plan, and a purpose. Probably the most distinguishing characteristic of a winner is their intensity of purpose. For both Amundsen and Scott, the priority of purpose was simple. To be what? The first man in history to reach one of the last great geographical goals of the age, the South Pole. And once you know your purpose, it's funny, you can begin to achieve things. Amundsen's will to win could not be bought. When you look at what he went through, his dream was not for sale. His purpose has no price. Amundsen was so passionate about the purpose that the work, the struggles they went through, the obstacles they faced, the discomforts were irrelevant. They were totally irrelevant. Amundsen knew that this would be the hardest thing he would ever have to do. But that's why it was so rewarding. That's where the reward was. This quest was purpose-driven that he was on. That's why it was worth doing. It's doing the hard that drives the winner. Amundsen chose the hard in every decision. In fact, they had to make a crucial strategic decision because in front of them was a shortcut, but they would have to climb a 19,590-foot glacier called the Alex Heiberg Glacier. Or they could go the normal route. It was longer, but they only had to climb 11,470-foot Beardmore Glacier. What did he choose? The hard. What did Scott choose? The easy. However, that easy turned out to be a nightmare because that glacier was broken up with crevices and ice falls, and it was very difficult on his ponies. So see, embracing the hard changed the race completely. You know, joy's found in the hard. That's where the joy is. It's in doing that hard. So note to self, hard is not an indicator to quit. Quitting's the result of forgetting the purpose, gang. And whenever you choose to win, you're gonna always find somebody that's willing to pay you to quit. That's always the case. See, Amundsen set sail from Norway. His financial backers wrote him a check to sail to the North Pole. He forgot to tell them he wasn't gonna go there. He went to the South Pole. In fact, he didn't even tell his crew until they were already out to sea several days that, hey, we're going south. The man was driven by passion and purpose, willing to win against all odds. So I'll leave you with this. I believe you were born to win. I didn't say I believe everybody's born a winner. I said I believe you were born to win, but I also believe that simply wanting to win is not enough. So let's keep it real. I believe that too many today want the appearance of winning rather than the patience of preparation, the persistence of the plan, or the passion of the purpose. Today, so many want the amazing result without the willingness to create the work it takes. There are no shortcuts to winning. No shortcuts to winning. So Amundsen or Scott, which one describes you? How are you leaving here this weekend? What's your decision? You've got to make that. So hear me. If you can tolerate fear, self-doubt, long periods of no results, if you can tolerate making the uncomfortable comfortable, going when others quit, embracing the hard, if you can tolerate sacrifice, pressure, criticism, if you can tolerate the mundane missed goals battle, the battle of failure after failure, if you can tolerate these things, then winning would like to have a word from you, with you, on your way home. This nation needs us to win. Go win. God bless you.
For existing IBOs only, not